In this lesson, we're going to be talking about sudo. Now, I've used sudo before, and sudo is really just super user do. So I want to execute something with administrative privileges. I'm going to use sudo to do that. So if I were to try to cat etc shadow, because that's where the passwords are stored, I don't have permission to do that. So all I have to do is sudo cat etc shadow. Suddenly I have administrative privileges. Now, there's a file that is used to manage these privileges. So let me show you that file here. I'm going to have to use sudo because it's a protected file. And in order to look at that file, I'm going to use the command vi sudo. And that's going to bring up the sudoers file in an editor for me. The sudoers file is protected. This is the easiest way to actually edit that file. And of course, I've got to be root in order to do that. Now, I've got some parameters here in order to determine who I'm going to give sudo permissions to. You can see the file is actually commented pretty nicely. So members of the admin group may gain root privileges. You can see I've got a %sign admin that says the group admin gets all permissions. And if I wanted to say all permissions without specifying a password, which is what I've got for my user, you'll notice every time I run sudo, it doesn't prompt me for a password. I can specify no password for all of the commands. Now, I do this just because this is a virtual machine, sits on my local network. Nobody other than me is ever going to get to this just because of what I've got it set up to do. Normally, and by default, sudo would actually prompt you for your password, not the root password. It's going to prompt you for your password. That just makes sure that you are really the correct user trying to gain a privilege escalation and execute something as root. This is the default file, other than I made the sudoers change here. And again, I added the no password in. I can also specify very specific commands for specific users to be able to execute as root. So I can really lock down the things that I can allow users to gain privileged access to. Commonly, though, you're going to give a user or maybe a couple of users the ability to gain access to the administrative account, and that's just going to be what you do. So you give yourself sudoer privilege, and you can sudo to do anything that you want. Now, when I do things like, let's say we go to taking a look at the users, and let me scroll down here so we can see the users. When I do this, bring up users accounts, and I do the unlock, it's actually asking for my password, and it's checking against the sudoers file. So even if you're using the GUI things, you're still getting sudoer privileges or sudo privileges in order to do administrative functions, which of course is what users are. Adding users and managing users, that's an administrative function. You're going to use this sudoers file. By default, when you create a user under Ubuntu, it gives you the permissions to escalate to this super user status to do certain things. And again, I just added the no password in for myself because I'm a little lazy and I don't want to type my password for all of the administrative things that I do, especially when I have protected my system in other ways. The reason that we do that is if you're in an office setting and you leave your system unlocked for whatever reason, somebody can come by, type sudo, and let's say we do sudo rm-rf asterisk. That's going to erase every file on the system. It's kind of a classic blunder, but it's something that you don't want to do. Somebody could actually do that if you gave yourself sudo permissions and didn't have a password associated with it. Anybody could wander by and do that. So in order to protect against mischief and mayhem and all of those sorts of things, we password protect access to the administrative account, but we don't have you log in directly as root. We have you log in as your own user and then just escalate as you need to. Once you've typed your password in, that will stay cached for some period of time of a couple of minutes or so, and you don't have to type your password again during that period. Once that timeout period expires, then you'll have to type your password to re-authenticate. That's how sudoers works. And that's how you would actually make changes to the sudoers file in order to give permissions or alter the permissions that you've got to gain superuser access.